What's going on YouTube? We're back with another PC build video. In today's video, we're going to be replacing the air cooler on this PC I built a few days ago with an AIO from Thermalright. It's a 240mm. In this build, we have a 700 watt Thermaltake power supply, a Z390 8th and 9th gen from Asus, and a 5700 XT off of Amazon. It is a Vandossy model. So we're going to start by getting the motherboard out of the case. We're first going to start by taking out the graphics card and the Wi-Fi PCI card. So to do that in this case, we are going to have to remove two screws holding down the graphics card. I didn't mention earlier, but this case is the 3500X RGB. So it is kind of a newer offering from Corsair, kind of like a budget case. I think it was right around like $90 or $100. That is including RGB. The one downside to it is it does not include a RGB controller, so you will have to get that separately. So we'll get the power connectors. You should have taken the power connectors off first, but no big deal. We'll get that tucked away. Get the little latch pressed down. Then we'll get the graphics card wiggled out. All right, and then this is the Vandossy 3500X, or 5700X, I mean. It's a pretty good card for right around about $180 on Amazon. And we will get the Wi-Fi removed, get the antennas taken out first. They are pretty easy to remove. This Wi-Fi card came from a small form factor case, and we did not have the bigger adapter yet for it. So remove the header first, and then we will just get the whole card taken right out. Next, we're going to work on removing all of our other connectors from the motherboard. So we'll start right up here with the CPU power. Get that guy disconnected. Come on, there you go. And then I might as well just come right down and do the two fans. Do the bottom one first. We'll grab that top one. Come on. I had it routed so pretty. We'll get that done. Let me reinstall it. So I built this a couple days ago, and we decided to upgrade the CPU cooler. The CPU in this is a 9400F i5, and the CPU cooler on it is actually fine, but we just aesthetically wanted to go with the AIO for this case, and once we get an RGB controller, it will look really good in this white build. So plus, if we ever decide to upgrade the CPU to an i7 or an i9, it will be a good future proofer. Or even if you upgrade the motherboard in this case to like a 690 or a 790, it would still be a really good cooler. So we will go ahead and keep getting everything disconnected. Get the 20 pin disconnected. This one can be a little hard. This is a difficult one to get installed as well. Let's get this out of the way first. Tuck that down. Almost. Try to pull it up nice and even. There we go. Almost. There we go. Alright, and get the SATA disconnected. It's a little hard in that small space. I have to tuck that one down in. Come down to our audio. And then the RGB header, which this RGB header goes to this fan. It doesn't work very well. Like I said, we need to get a controller for this build. So we'll tuck that away and make sure we are all clear. Now that we have everything disconnected from the motherboard, we're simply going to work around the case and remove all of the screws holding it down. Actually, in this case, I might remove the CPU cooler first. Actually, no, let's remove the whole motherboard first. That would be easier to pull it out. So we'll just start up here and then we will work our way around. Now, with all 6 screws removed, we should be free to remove the motherboard. So let's give it just a little bit of a test. There we go. We'll gently get that pulled free. Oh, still have one more connection. And I also pulled a USB through with it. Oh, come on, it's the front panel. There we go. Now that we have the motherboard out of the case, we're going to take the CPU cooler off and replace the backplate. So we'll simply uninstall the CPU cooler by going across little by little. You don't want to loosen any one of them completely right away. Just go across a few times until they loosen up. Should be getting pretty close. One more round. Let's see. A couple more turns. There we go, that one popped. Oh, I think that popped. This also, since it's a new build, has fresh thermal paste, so it can be a little sticky. Let's remove the fan header first, so it'll come right off. Alright. Just give it a little wiggle. And like I said, thermal paste can be really sticky when it's fresh, and I definitely used a little too much, which we're absolutely going to do again. So we will get this CPU cleaned off, and we will first, let's just grab our back plate. And you guys can't judge for this back plate. We had to use it from an Optiplex. We didn't have one, so we cut it out of the case. And I don't even know if I should show you guys this, but we cut a back plate off. This is kind of hilarious. So no judge here, but this is something you can do, and it does work. So anyway, we will get the new back plate installed and we will be right back. So to begin installing the AIO, we're going to have to install the new backplate onto the motherboard. To begin doing that, we're going to need the backplate, which is labeled C, and the screws, which are labeled E. Also in preparation, we're going to need the spacers, which are labeled F. So it looks like we will put the screws through, and then we will put the spacers on. So we'll go around and get all the screws put on. And also the back plate is side specific. It will say like what your socket is on the back and have their Thermalright logo, and that will face outward. So get those screws put on really quick over here, and then we will grab those spacers, which they are labeled F. So we have, and they are the smaller washers, the small blue washers. Open them carefully so they don't go everywhere. Start with this last guy. So I'll just get those pressed all the way down. It's nice to do this on a firm surface. And they kind of hold the screws on a little bit so they don't fall off now. So get those all snugged up and make sure there's nothing else we need to do here. It looks like there's two different mounting hole positions. The top one, location A, is for 1700, and location B or 2 is for the LGA 1100. So let's just make sure we got these mounted in the right positions, because I did not realize that was something to factor in. So we did not get that moved down. So definitely be mindful of that, guys. These do have two different mounting positions. All right, now that we have all of those mounted in the lower positions, we should be ready to install our back plate onto the back of the motherboard. So we will very quickly get that installed. I'll never know where to grab these. 20 pins usually the best place. So we will carefully get this just lined up. Try to give you guys a better view. Start with these bottom two. There we go. That looks pretty good. Get it set back down here so it doesn't fall out. Let's see. Alright, now we will get the top washers. And it looks like the top washers are going to be G. So we will get G set on there, and then we will be ready to get the plates installed. So G is actually a black washer. It is slightly bigger, a little bit bigger than the blue ones. So we'll get those pushed down. They don't fit quite as securely as the blue washers underneath. These kind of slide right down, as you can see. We'll get those slid down. And then we are ready to put the rails on. And again, there are two different mounting positions, so be mindful of that. And these rails also have a stud that needs to face upward. I have mounted those in the last video upside down, and then you have to go back and take them off, and it's no fun. So quickly get these rails installed. And again, they do have side-specific locations. Just quickly see which ways they run. I'm not sure if that really matters, but it does look like the rails run across like this. And you guys will probably leave me comments and say it doesn't matter. So definitely feel free to leave that comment and tell me if it matters or not. It likely does not. But I am going to do it as it shows here, just to be safe. So it pictures these rails with the studs facing upward down there. So next up, we will need to put our screws, our thumb screws, on top, and they are labeled J. We now have our thumb screws labeled J, so we will quickly get those installed. In the last video, I said you had to do these in a cross pattern, but I don't believe it actually matters. But we're gonna do it anyway, just to be safe. And we're not gonna put them all the way tight right away. The white AIO actually uses silver hardware instead of the black hardware that comes on the other one. I don't know how I feel about it. I think I kind of like the black hardware better. It's a little sleeker and seems a little nicer. But it's still kind of a nice mounting system. Better than some of the air coolers for sure. So get those all snug down, nice and tight. Don't want to go too tight, but alrighty. And now we are probably ready for thermal paste. So now that we are ready for thermal paste, we're going to go ahead and get the motherboard installed back into the case. Now that we're back at the case, I think we're going to start by installing the AIO into the top of the case. We're going to do this ahead of time so that we don't need to worry about the motherboard being in there and hitting it with the pump head or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and just get this installed. I'm probably going to install this off camera. You pretty much just installed a couple screws into the top of the case. It's pretty easy. It's just a little hard to do with the case on its side, so we're going to go ahead and stand it up and get some screws in here, and then we will be right back. So like I said, it's pretty easy to install the AIO. There's just 6 screws that go into the top, so we'll just go ahead and get the last couple put in. I got a few started off camera just because it was a little easier. So we'll see about getting the last 3 or 4 put in here. At least I hoped it would be a little easier. Now that we have our AIO fully installed, we're going to get the motherboard back into the case. So we're going to very carefully, and I do mean that, line up our motherboard with our IO shield. So close. Move a couple connectors a little bit. Now that we have our motherboard fully installed back into the case, we're going to get some thermal paste on the CPU and get the block installed. So with the AIO, they included this Thermalright TF7 thermal paste, which we are going to apply now. So it's pretty easy to apply thermal paste. There's a lot of controversy on how much to apply. Like I said, I usually just do a little X pattern with a dot or two. This stuff does not really want to stick well. I did just clean the CPU. Wow, this stuff really doesn't want to stick. Now that we have a little bit of thermal paste installed, it's time to get our AIO on. So the first thing to remember is to peel off this before you install your pump header. And we're simply going to come around and line it up with the headers, the studs, and gently push down. Screwdriver to do this. To give it a little wiggle, just to spread out the thermal paste some. And go just until it's snug. Next thing, we will route our cables to the back. Now that we have everything back together, we are finally ready to reinstall our graphics card. To do that, we are simply going to line up the PCI slot, make sure that the lane is open. Then we are just going to carefully slot it into place and press down. Should be about it. And then this one, fortunately, the 3500X case takes screws instead of thumb screws. And I've also tried it with the 4000D thumb screws. They do not fit. They are slightly too long. So unfortunately, you can't even trade these screws out for thumb screws, which is a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, I really do like the design of the 3500X. It's a nice open case. It's really clean. I just wish they included an RGB controller. So finally, we are just going to get our PCI power connectors connected. Make sure we hear a good click and have them fully seated. Same deal with that, and then we'll just tuck that connector in there. And that should conclude our build. And now we're going to quickly just make sure that it posts and everything. So we will flip the power supply and fans are all spinning. This PC needs an RGB adapter, so only one of the fans RGB currently works. That's a good post. Let's restart and make sure we can see it all in our BIOS. Restart. And to get into BIOS, we will just hit delete. Hit delete. F1 or F2. And there's our AIO pump. So we got our fan registering, got our pump registering. It looks like we are in business. So thanks again for watching, guys.